Welcome to Mark Oliphant College. This is our story. It goes from 2006 to the end of 2012. We show this video to visitors to the school, to pre-service teachers, and to teachers who are beginning with us as part of their odyssey. In 2010, Julia Gillard, the then Federal Minister for Education, said demography is not destiny. Well, the truth is, for our children, it has been destiny. If you're born in our area, then your chances after school were far less than children virtually in anywhere else in urban Australia. Our children come from one of the poorest designated areas in urban Australia, and the challenge for Mark Oliphant College is to change and ensure that demography is no longer destiny for these children and young people. So the brief history of MOC World is that in 2006, the state government of South Australia announced that there would be 6 new schools built to replace what they called 17 failing schools. At the beginning, the 6 new schools were immediately designated super schools because of their size, the amount of money that was being spent, etc., etc. Mark Oliphant College was the only school that was to go from birth to year 12. It was also going to be the biggest, and that has proved the case. So who were the schools we were closing? Well, they were the Smithfield Plains schools, Smithfield Plains Kindy, Smithfield Plains Primary, Smithfield Plains Junior Primary, Smithfield Plains High School, and Smith Creek Primary School. They were obviously in the area of Smithfield Plains, and they, as stated earlier, were in the area that's been designated one of the poorest urban areas in terms of household income in Australia. The schools themselves were in appalling condition. Families had left the schools over the previous 10 years and their enrolments had been in significant decline. In addition, the high school had had a history of significant behaviour management issues, which once again had also led to families leaving. They also had some of the lowest NAPLAN results in Australia and very low SACE completion rate and attendance rates. So the new school was announced in 2006. The communities that were still left attending the old school voted overwhelmingly to close the schools and actually wanted to move their children to the new school. However, it was to be another 4 years before the new school was to start in 2010. At that stage, it was going to have to start on the old sites because the new buildings were not completed, and it wasn't until May 2011 that Mark Oliphant College opened on its site on Douglas Drive, Munapara. So MOC has some very outstanding features. First of all, it's been designed as a schools within a school, a village of schools. All those buildings surround a primary school oval or a village green, and it gives the whole concept of there being a village around an open playing space. As well as having the concept of sub-schools, so the schools feel much smaller than the very large overall school organisation, there was a significant number of other key developments. We have a leadership structure that had not actually previously been supported, and it is through the cooperation between the Australian Education Union and the Department of Education and Child Development that leadership structure was put in place and guaranteed for 5 years. So not only is there a principal, now currently at PCO 9 level, there are in fact 4 heads of school at PCO 4 level. So in a normal school there'll be deputy principals, but there's also a PCO 5 deputy principal overseeing curriculum and professional learning programs in the school. So this was above what would normally be entitled, significantly above, and it meant that we could attract people into those positions who had significant experience, something that had not previously been possible, as for most people the appointments at that level often are their first appointments, but at Mark Oliphant College we were able to attract people into the leadership positions who had significant experience in higher order leadership in both junior primary, secondary education. The third key was the commitment to ICT, that this was going to be the first of the really high-tech schools. It was completely wireless. In fact, in 2006, when it was actually planned, people were still talking about plugging computers into walls. But by 2010-11, when we started, the school whole infrastructure was wireless, and there was a commitment that we would have a one-to-one program with our children. However, everything else was the same. If the staff wanted to stay, they could stay. The students were originally the only ones in the old community who wanted to come here, and so in 2010, when we actually opened, we were opening on the old buildings across 2 sites, and we still had all the issues of the massive facilities issues, and a community that by now in 2010 was saying, would this new school ever start, and what would it actually look like? Were we just going to get some new people who were leaders? So we needed to develop a sense of entitlement and develop it quickly, that we actually were here for the long haul and that the schooling was about to significantly change for our children and young people and the community from which they came. The first key element was identity and ownership. These were very, very definite decisions that we made. So each sub-school has a head of school, as I mentioned before, a PCO4 level. They also have a senior leader 2 or assistant principal, and that title is learning and engagement. You actually find in all the titles under the head of school, the title is learning and engagement, learning and well-being, etc., because learning is at the centre of everything we do. There's a coordinator learning and wellbeing in each sub-school, and that is the counsellor. So we have a counsellor in each area of the school. Then we have a coordinator for learning and teaching in 3 of the sub-schools. That is to actually look at the curriculum program and particularly the pedagogy. In the early years, because of the complexity of that role, looking at both preschool and junior primary, it's a senior leader 2, early years and early childhood education. In 2013, we add to the leadership in the sub-schools by a coordinator for learning and inclusion. And of course, we have the teaching teams that go with it. And they are teams, that's how we work it. No teacher teaches across different sub-schools. So the whole team work within a sub-school. So just as for the children, the teaching team's the same. The sub-schools range in size from 25 teachers to 35 being the largest. And they range in size from the number of children to 300 to 450. So if you think of them, they actually look and feel like small schools. It's only when we all get together at major occasions, and if we have to do that, we have to assemble outside because there's nowhere inside to fit us, that you actually look and think, my goodness, that is a very big school. At recess and lunchtime, children can play but nearly everywhere in the yard. There are just a few restrictions. We don't separate the younger children from the older children because of the fact that often they have siblings. But you don't actually notice because people can be spread out. The exceptions are, of course, the preschool children have their own fully enclosed area, and our older children and young people from the middle years and senior years said, was it possible for them to actually, during recess and lunchtime, to have an area where they could be away from younger children if they wanted to, and so they have the outside spaces. The other things that we did to ensure identity and ownership was in the uniform. The uniform has a consistent idea of the red, white and blue, and we chose those iconic colours because they are the colours of the Central District football team. One of the major credits to the area of the city of Elizabeth and Playford, and of course having had that fantastic record in the Australian Football League. And so with the red, white and blue, we chose to balance that with grey, which is the base colour for our uniform. And so we see for the early years, their tops are red with a white, blue and grey stripe. For the middle years, it's a blue top with a red, white and grey stripe, etc. And for the senior years, it's white. We chose that the early and primary years would both have red tops simply because it was just too expensive for parents with the amount of growth that kids have at that age to actually change after just only 2 years in junior primary. And so the uniforms are the same and yet they're different. They give identity and ownership throughout the school. So we then come to the second big ticket item, which is how we were going to get ICT. We began a one-to-one rollout, and now all our children have either laptops or iPads, and that goes from reception through to year 12, and at year 12 they have access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The other key elements when we first started was to develop a curriculum K-12, ensure that we could improve our literacy and numeracy, and with a name like Mark Oliphant, obviously science was a major focus, that the educational brief, which was put together by the communities of the closing schools, was something that people really wanted us to focus on. So we believe strongly that we should use the technology that we've got to level the playing field and ensure that for our children, demography is not destiny. So what do we see in 2012? Well, since 2010, 80 new teachers have begun. So although all teachers could stay, and most did stay, and most have continued to stay, we have grown from a staff of 55 to next year, beginning the year with nearly 110 students. The school has a very high profile in the Department of Education and Child Development, both because of its size, because of the pressure on enrolments, but also because it is the largest one-to-one investment we have in the state, and we're very proud that we've managed to achieve that. Enrolments, we can't fit everybody in. We can't fit everybody in who wants to come to the school, who even lives in the zone. We find that it's really important that we try and manage the enrolments in the school. For example, the biggest demand at one stage, or the biggest demand since we have started, has been in the area of preschool enrolments. And so rather than open long daycare, we doubled the size of our kindergarten. So rather than have 60 children that could attend kindergarten, we actually have 100 children attending our kindergarten. And of course those children then all want to come to the school. So you can see that the numbers grow very quickly from the beginning. We also have an exceptionally strong relationship with all the other schools along the Peachy Road, Peachy cluster of schools. We are the only school that has a high school in that group of schools. The others are primary schools, a kindergarten, a special school, and an adult re-entry school. But we work very much together to ensure people understand that the Peachy School is about excellence in education, because unfortunately we've had a reputation in the past for not being about that. It's not the correct idea, but often, as we know, urban myths grow very quickly. So we have a centre for excellence, and we work together on a whole range of programming and projects to ensure the best for our children and our teachers. And so 3 years in, since we started, we think we've come up with a new development and continue to improve how we do, or as we talk it, time for a new plan. In 2010, our focuses were: how would we develop schools within a school? What would the ICT look like? What was the curriculum going to look like, birth to year 12? And were we going to be able to develop a literacy plan to improve the literacy of our children and young people? In 2011, we realised that we were same and different. The sub-schools were the same. For example, the uniforms looked the same, but the colours are different. It's a very simple example, but it's a good one. And when you look at the buildings and what's being done inside, again, that whole theme of, yes, we're part of one large organisation, but within that we can allow differences. By mid-2011, we had actually achieved a one-to-one rollout. We did that by going viral, by putting the devices in the hands of the children. We'll often say to you, if you're coming to here to find out as a teacher about how to use a device and think that we're going to give you in-service, we won't. We'll just give you the device and say, there are 3 ways to find out. Ask a colleague, ask a kid, YouTube or Google it. You'll work it out. This is the century of technology. By 2011, we had mapped out a Beta 12 curriculum. We also had the Australian curriculum coming in, and so we adapted and adopted that very quickly to ensure that our children were actually following the curriculum of both South Australia and also the Eastern Seaboard. And we looked at what we could do in literacy and came up with a holistic literacy action plan that would enable us to, over a length of time, dramatically improve the literacy scores of our children. By 2012, with the numbers continuing to increase, we realised that although we were same and different, we needed to think of ourselves more as a village of schools. And that's where the sub-schools became virtually autonomous, that the staff started to teach just in that sub-school, where the whole leadership was attached just to that sub-school, so that the children and the teachers had a sense of real identity. We realised that we didn't just want our kids to use laptops to make prettier pictures or do more PowerPoints, or instead of using their handwriting, write an essay. What we wanted them to be is be creators, not just consumers of information. And so we talk about enabling technology. We introduce gaming as a course at year 11 and 12. We look at how we can do systems technology and engineering, how we can look at Lego tech and robotics all the way down to year 5. So the whole gamut of enabling technologies, and that also includes the use of social media as well, and multimedia. And then we talk about curriculum, concept and literacy plan. We work on the fact that the key to any change in the classroom is the teacher. So working on the capacity of our teachers to offer the highest quality professional learning programs that we can, to have the characteristics of a MOC teacher, what we think every teacher should bring to every lesson every day. These are the critical elements of how we build our capacity to deliver the best we can for the students who are in our care. And so 2013, it's all about space. It's about learning spaces. We don't have enough. What we have, we're going to look at differently. We have to keep working on. We have a new building promise for 2013 that will take a significant amount of pressure off the middle and senior years. In digital technology, it's about virtual space, the cloud. What is happening? This is the century for our children. Next year, there will not be a primary school child in this school who was born in the last century. And it's important as adults we realise that this is their century and this is what they're going to be used to, and we have to actually ensure that they're ready for it. In our curriculum, we need to have space for learning, and we talk now about less is more, taking the extraneous out of the curriculum by fining it down, by having our teachers teach in team, by putting more time into core learning, by also then having project-based learning, having our children come up with product and crafting and refining that product and critiquing it. So space for learning throughout the curriculum. So it's all about space in 2013. When we talk about learning spaces, when we first got here, the early years had spaces in the middle of the building. All the buildings have space in the middle of the building. We call them learning commons. We work on the 3 points of view. In each classroom, you can look inside the classroom, you can look at the windows outside the classroom, and you also can look into the middle of the building into a learning common. The early years, as I said, when we first got here, their spaces were very pristine, very beautiful. And the reason being that we were all a bit scared about making a mess in the brand new buildings. But for the little ones, it's all about play. And so bringing play back into the middle of the buildings, making sure that they can experience and learn through doing and playing. In the primary years, we think it's about adventure. It's about using space differently. And so if you go in the primary years building, you'll see that we actually have grandstands, we have mess, we have kids up high, we have kids down low. We have product everywhere because it's all about exploring what might happen in your environment. The middle years, it's about structure, early adolescence. The main reason for that for us is that at year 8, we actually accept into the school approximately 120 students who have not been through the MOC primary school system. They've come in from all the other local primary schools, and we don't know. And so we have to bring everybody together and actually have people begin at the same space. And so that is a far more structured environment. The other issue for the middle years, which is our biggest sub-school currently, is that in fact it has not got as much space as we would like it to have, and there hopefully will be supported when we actually have the new building on site and they can spread out a bit more. And when you get to the senior years, it does look like a coffee lounge, including having their own coffee machine. And so we treat them as young adult learners. The world of MOC spins very quickly. The following are just some of the key elements that we're working on now. As mentioned, the Australian curriculum is our curriculum that defines us all the way through up to year 10, and we have e-textbooks which have the Australian curriculum on them from year 7 to year 10. We have Stephen Heppel is a visiting thinker in residence, and we've been fortunate enough to have him come to the school once every year since 2011. And Stephen talks about the new ABC. As you walk around the school, you'll come to a section which we call the Forest of Signs, which actually has the Mark Oliphant College ABC, Forest of Signs. A, Mark Oliphant College is adapt, aspire, achieve. B is believe, be brave, and be better. We'll never be the best, we want to constantly be better. And C is create, collaborate, and community. And they're what we want to instill in our children and young people and our staff as we continue to work to improve the learning outcomes for our children. We're a tinkering school. We're a partner with the Tinkering School in America, and our concept there is to get our kids to, as we say, tinker, look at engineering, do the things that would have happened previously in Dad's shed, to get kids to think of massive projects that we might build, that we might do, to let their imagination run riot, but see if we can actually build something like that. And you'll hear a lot about tinkering at Mark Oliphant. We also have a commitment to High Tech High. Currently 6 of our staff are in the Leading School Certificate program, and we have worked very strongly with them about developing our curriculum. High Tech High is a group of 11 schools in the San Diego area of California who get outstanding results. Over 98% of their Year 12 graduates or their high school graduates go on to university, and this is a phenomenal number from an area not unlike that of Mark Oliphant College. And finally, the Children's University is our new development to see, can we open this magnificent facility for longer than the 6 hours a day? Can we have activities going on after hours that children and their parents can come to? And the idea of the Children's University is you have a passport, and every one of the accredited activities you do, you get the passport ticked off. And if you get enough of the areas ticked off, then you can actually become a graduate from the Children's University. It has proved to be incredibly successful in in England, and it is something that we're very keen to develop at Mark Oliphant. So, next on, as I said before, we have what do we want our students to do and become? What do we want our school to do and become? And what are we going to do? And to do that, we have to believe in a future. We have to create that future. And we have to engage with all the modern issues and technology that are around us. So we don't shy away from social media. We actually embrace it. There are 16 Facebook pages, and you'll actually find that they are incredibly active as we try and open up the classroom and the school to our parent community. We have a website that we have worked very hard on to basically make the digital story or portfolio of Mark Oliphant College. We have YouTube, which you can access either via the Facebook page or the website. Teachers are developing e-portfolios, and 2 of the sub-schools have a commitment by the end of next year. All of their teachers will have e-portfolios. You can also follow us on Twitter, and there's a principals blog that's published every Sunday night, which is called Reflections. So this is the new generation of teaching. How can we embrace what is happening in the world outside of the school, bring the school into it and it out to the school? We want our kids to be connected to the whole world, not just the world of the small suburbs that surround us. So, to finish the video, there are 5 MOC challenges. Entitlement, as we started, what education should be, that our children have a sense of entitlement, and from that entitlement that they do have demands on us, that our expectations from our parents, from our staff and kids all need to keep rising, that once you have an entitlement, it's not just saying, gee, it's great to go to Oliphant. We want to say, it's great to go to Oliphant, and it's great because we get fantastic results. Often schools are judged by being successful because they're large and they can't fit everybody in. We don't want to be judged by that. We want to be judged by, in fact, what our results are. But we are large and we can't fit everybody in. We think that Mark Oliphant College is a very exciting place to be. A genuine sense that we might be part of the future and that we might be supporting create the future. We might be dreaming a future that might actually come true for both our kids and for schooling. And the endings. Can we deliver? Well, we must deliver because demography cannot be destiny for our children. Thank you for watching this video.